Welcome to ConWin5, which is the last in the ConWin series, where we're creating a window from a console program. And in a way, this is the main program, or the main information I've been building up to with all the other ConWins. It's the UI thread interfacing. And you have to make a lot of changes to the program in order for UI thread interfacing to work. And I really suggest you copy the source code and print it out and maybe put it on the wall and meditate on it, because it takes a while to really get what's going on. But the first change you have to add is you have to add a couple lines to the ConWin class global data. The first line is public delegate void add list item, which defines a delegate. And then the next line is public add list item d underscore, which I'm using to indicate delegate, add list item. So this actually creates a variable that's the delegate. Then within the ConWin constructor, you need to actually instantiate the delegate with d add list item equals new add list item, and reference an actual or real method that becomes what the delegate actually executes. And the real method we're using is add list item method. So you'll need to add the add list item method and have this method actually update the list box. So you see what the real trick is the list box is being updated from the ConWin class and not from the thread, really, although it ends up getting called from the thread. And then you need to add a second class in addition to the ConWin class, and I named this class MyThreadClass. Actually, a lot of these naming and a lot of the code was inspired by Microsoft itself documentation on the invoke method. So you add the MyThreadClass class, and the constructor creates a link to the ConWin via a technique I describe in detail in C Edge 46 C# parent to child form communication, which is basically passing a handle of the form to the constructor of the new class. And then the only method really within the MyThread class is run. And the run method uses an invoke method that's inherited from the form class to call the delegate we created in the ConWin class, the d underscore add list item delegate. And so when we, in the button event handler, when we create the thread, the MyThread class is instantiated in the thread function, which is the actual code of the thread. And then once it's instantiated, the run function of the MyThread class is called directly. So the flow of control really is create the thread, then the thread creates the class, and then the thread calls the run function of the class, and the run function calls the invoke method that's inherited from the form, and the invoke method calls the delegate that we created in ConWin. And then finally the delegate becomes a real call to the public function in ConWin that actually updates the list box. As I say, much contemplation probably required. And two video references I want to make, even if it sounds a little self-serving, is the C# Edge 6, which I describe how delegates work, and the one I mentioned previously, the C# Edge 46, which is in the Alexa series, and Alexa 3, and it describes C# parent to child form communication, which is really class-to-class communication, but in this case both classes involve two different forms. So if we go into our DOS box or console application or command prompt and do NPP, which is a shortcut I created for Notepad++, and then highlight the name of the evolving program we've been writing, ConWin.cs, and then press enter to copy it into the clipboard and right click to paste it. We can look at the program with Notepad++, and here are the two lines I added that define the delegate and actually create a delegate variable. And if we go down further in the constructor of the ConWin, this is where we actually instantiate the variable and have as a subscribing function this real function add list item method. And then we need to write the add list item method, which actually does the write of the line that we had previously directly in the button event handler that says thank you for pushing the button, and then I do a list box update. I'm not sure whether I have to do that, but it doesn't hurt. And when we go into the button handler, we're as usual creating a thread, and this time I'm using the new thread start around the thread function. I didn't use that previously, and basically that's another delegate, and it's a delegate that makes the thread function more thread safe. So things like you can't call mythread.start twice or you'll get an error. Although I think there's situations where you want to call mythread.start twice, but I guess that's a video for another day. And then the thread function that's created by the thread creation is thread function, and it's here that we instantiate the class, mythread class, and I'm just calling the object that it's instantiated on MTCO for mythread class object. And then I call the function within the class, which is the run function. So we also have to add a new class, and you'll notice that in the class we have a constructor that takes a parameter that's the ConWin form, a reference to the ConWin form. So I have p_conwin is passed from the creation of the class, and I just have this passed in to create this link. So I assign the p_conwin to a l_conwin, which is a local copy of the reference to the ConWin form that we have inside the mythread class. So we now have a local reference to the ConWin form. It's a communication link. As I mentioned, it's described in C# Edge 46 in more detail. And then now that we have this link, we do l_conwin, our local link to ConWin, .invoke, which is actually a method that's inherited from the form class. And as a parameter to this invoke, we do l_conwin.d_add list item, which is the delegate we created, the delegate object we created that's public, and it has a reference to a public function which actually does the update to the list box. So, as I say, much contemplation required. Now if we compile this program with the C# compiler, CSC, and I'll just do a right click to paste the name, and then we can run it by doing a right click and then getting rid of the .cs, and this brings up the program that is really the final program of the series. And if I press the push me, you see the thank you for pushing the button appears through this convoluted chain of events, and I can keep pushing it all day. And if you push it enough times, of course, the scroll bar appears in the list box. Well, I hope you enjoyed this lesson and learned a lot. As I say, I'd go to my website and look at the source code for this program, and probably print it out and think about it a lot. Just look at it and think about it a lot. And I'll see you next lesson, and don't forget to subscribe.